The Centauri II from Vvolt is a hybrid e-bike that blends the lightweight frame of a city bike with the features and performance of a commuter, but this one kicks things up a few notches with some uncommon tech that makes it an absolute breeze to ride. So what did Vvolt add to this bike that you won't find in many other places? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report, where we're known for making detailed, high-quality reviews of every e-bike we get our hands on, including performance data from our series of standardized tests. If you're shopping for an e-bike and you're looking for a review source you can trust, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can find your way back later. And then if we're able to help you find a bike that works for you, please do us a favor in return by using our affiliate link in the video description when you make a purchase. This helps support us without increasing the price that you pay. So business aside, let's see what the Centauri II has to offer. I want to start out with a few highlights about the bike, with the first being its 3-speed automatic transmission. So the bike's rear hub houses a mechanical gearing system that shifts automatically at 12 miles per hour and 20 miles per hour, so it makes this bike incredibly easy to use. All you have to do is hop on, set the pedal assist level that you like, and go. There's no need to worry about shifting, so you have more time to relax and enjoy the scenery. The second thing to talk about is the bike's 350 watt mid-drive motor, which is made by Ananda. This is a pretty peppy and powerful motor. It peaks at 650 watts with a whopping 120 newton meters of torque, but it feels really smooth and natural. So regardless of the level of pedal assist, this bike feels a lot like riding a regular non-electric bike. Finally, the Centauri II has really great handling, which is a result of its relatively low weight and its wide handlebars. The bike weighs in at 55 pounds, including its roughly 6-pound battery, so it's pretty light and nimble for a commuter, and with 720mm handlebars, I always felt like I was very much in control of its steering. Moving on to the rest of the bike's specs, the mid-drive motor is powered by a removable 36-volt, 490 watt-hour battery that's fully integrated into the underside of a down tube, and that includes a locking mechanism on the side. There's a Gates CDX belt that connects the motor to the internal gear hub, and that's paired with a 46-tooth chainring and a 22-tooth cog on the freewheel. Vvolt spec'd the bike with hydraulic disc brakes from Shimano. That's the MT200 system with 2 piston calipers, and then both wheels have 180mm rotors, as well as full coverage alloy fenders with mud guards over 27.5 inch by 2.25 inch CST street tires. The Centauri II's fork is rigid, but it does have a pretty cool monoshock suspension with 30mm of travel in the head tube. There's a 65 lux headlight integrated into the head tube as well, which blends seamlessly with the bike's down tube, and then there's a tail light mounted beneath the custom gel saddle. And then up in the cockpit, I mentioned the 720mm handlebars, but those have 15mm of rise and a 12-degree sweep for comfort, as well as locking ergonomic rubber grips. There are 3 different stem lengths depending on frame size, so either 50, 80, or 100mm. The bike's control panel is on the left side along with a bell. There's a central color display, and then there's no throttle, but there is a boost button on the right handlebar that we'll talk more about later in the review. A few final details should wrap things up. The Centauri II is a Class 3 e-bike with pedal assist up to 28 miles per hour. It has a total payload capacity of 440 pounds, including the rider, and up to 44 pounds on the optional cargo rack. There are bottle cage mounts on the seat tube and the underside of the top tube, and then 3-pack mounts on both sides of the fork. And then the bike is available in 2 two-tone color options, both with reflective accents. The green version we tested is called Forest Planet, but there's also a silver color option called Galactic Storm. That covers just about everything though, so let's dive into our test sections and see how this bike performed. We tested the Centauri II's hydraulic brake system by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, applying the brakes at a marked line, and then measuring the distance it traveled before stopping. The bike's final score is an average of 3 results, and that turned out to be 23 feet and 2 inches. I compared this bike with similar models from the commuter and city bike categories and found that it did a solid job. The average for both categories was 22 feet and 5 inches, so the Centauri was a little slower to stop than average, but it was still well within the normal and expected range of results. In my testing, I'll say that the brakes felt effective and the bike felt very controlled when coming to a stop. This brake system didn't have quite as much bite as I was expecting, but it had very good modulation overall. And I noticed that the bike stayed nice and straight when braking without much skidding or fishtailing. All of that is to say that we deemed the brakes safe and effective, so the Centauri II gets 2 thumbs up in this test. The goal of our speed test was to map out the Centauri II's speed profile to see how balanced its pedal assist system is. I took the bike to our local shared use paths to ride it in each of its 5 assist levels, so let's go see how the test went and we can analyze the results back here in the studio. All right, so we are here for a speed test on the Centauri II. We are starting things off with no pedal assist, and we're landing kind of right around 12.5 miles per hour, just on leg power. Let's go ahead and go up to the first assist level, which is chill. So very appropriate for a light level of power, and that really is what I feel. I mean, there was a noticeable difference, but pretty slight. Also, sorry for the sniffles. I'm still getting over a bit of a cold here. So up to right around 14 miles per hour, maybe a little higher in chill. So yeah, mile per hour difference, maybe a mile and a half. Let's go up to eco mode. Okay, definitely a more noticeable increase in power there. Pedaling got a lot easier. It's still pretty natural. I mean, you know, mid-drive motor and all that, but feels really nice here. Yeah. I think maintaining, you know, this consistent level of effort here. We are kind of up toward 18 miles per hour. Whoop. Maybe a little higher. 18 and a half, somewhere in there. Yeah. Okay. Let's go up to tour mode. I'll pick things up a little bit more. Okay. So right there around 20 miles per hour is where the third gear for the automatic transmission shifted over, which that felt like a good spot. It was getting a little loose in pedaling, but it seems like we're, let's see, kind of landing right around 21.5 miles per hour here in tour mode. Let's go ahead and go up to sport. All right, so the levels above chill, you know, all feel pretty much the same, but obviously going quite a bit faster. So in sport here, up to about 24 miles per hour, maybe 24 and a half at times. Let's finish things off in turbo mode. All right, I'm definitely a very, I mean, you know, natural but easier experience here for sure. So we're up to right around 26 miles per hour in turbo. And then I'm just gonna finish things off, see if we can hit 28 with some extra effort. So 27 and a half. Yeah, there, 28. Okay, cool. We will call that our speed test on the Centauri. To recap those numbers, I started off pedaling at 12.7 miles per hour on my own, then reached 14.2 miles per hour in chill mode, 18.3 in eco, 21.4 miles per hour in tour, 24.2 in sport, and then 25.8 miles per hour in turbo, all with the same moderate level of effort. With a bit of extra leg power, I was able to get up to the class 3 maximum speed of 28 miles per hour. Now, if we graph the data I gathered, we can see that overall there's a nice linear pattern that reflects pretty consistent increases in speed between settings, and that's exactly what we look for in this test. We find that this gives the bike an intuitive feel, since the amount of power you get when increasing the level of pedal assist is right about what you'd expect. In my experience, that definitely held true, although I have to say that most of the time I felt like the power level of even chill or eco mode was plenty for general riding. I also want to mention that chill mode does technically have a speed limit where the motor cuts out. So Vvolt says that that's 12 miles per hour, but it seemed to be closer to 14 miles per hour on our bike, so that jives pretty well with where my average speed landed in that mode. All of the other 4 assist levels are not limited in speed, so you could, in theory, reach 28 miles per hour depending on how hard you pedal. All in all though, the Centauri did a great job in this test, so I'm giving it another 2 thumbs up. Let's see if it can keep up this quality in our range and hill tests. We tested the Centauri II's battery life in 2 separate range tests to find its minimum and maximum range. For the minimum range, we rode the bike on paved shared use paths in turbo mode until it ran out of charge, and for its maximum range, we did the same thing in chill mode, making sure to stay below the threshold where the motor turned off. Our results were 23.4 and 64.1 miles, which are both very practical numbers that are good for the Centauri specs, but they are a bit below average when compared to similar e-bikes with mid-drive motors that we've tested previously. We haven't seen too many similar bikes with 350 watt motors, so the pool of bikes I used for comparison included mostly those with 250 watt mid-drives and a few with 500 watt motors. Those bikes averaged 32.7 miles in the high power test, making the Centauri about 9 miles below average, and they scored 70.4 miles in the low power test, so the Centauri was only off by about 6 miles in that one. Considering that the biggest difference was in the Centauri's turbo mode test, I think it's likely that two factors came into play here. So number one, this bike's motor was more powerful than most of the other ones we're comparing it with, so it burned through battery charge faster. And then number two, this bike's 490 watt hour battery is smaller than average. 578 watt hours is actually the middle ground there, so there simply wasn't as much gas in the tank. As I said earlier though, I didn't find myself needing full power except when dealing with some pretty tough hills or if I really wanted to maximize my speed. So if you don't mind a more moderate level of power, I think you'll still be able to get quite a distance from a single charge. Even the 23.5-ish miles we got on turbo mode should cover most commutes, so there's a good chance you might be able to get in a couple of trips when using the mid or low levels of assist. Bottom line, we think the Centauri II's range is appropriate for its style, and we were able to exceed Vvolt's advertised range of up to 60 miles, so we're gonna give it another 2 thumbs up. For our hill test, our test rider Justin took the Centauri II to a location called Hellhole Trail, which is a paved path with a 12% average grade over 1/3 of a mile. I'm gonna pass you over to him to see how the bike pedaled. You can get his thoughts as he goes, and then we'll take a look at the bike results once we get back here.
All right, we're out on Hellhole with the Vvolt Centauri II, and kind of interested to see how this one goes, given this got internal gear shifting, automatic shifting, so I can't control that. So far, through the steep section, about 9 miles an hour, 8 miles an hour. I'm trying to let the motor do most of the work. I'm having to push a little bit. There's a mid-drive kind of normal there. And about 7, 8. Motor's incredibly quiet. I'll let you listen through here, but I don't know if this GoPro is going to pick up any of that. So yeah, motor stayed really quiet. Got down to about 7 or 8 miles per hour there. So it's, and we'll see what the results say. But as far as kind of just initial feel, I feel like I might want an extra gear to make it pedaling just a little bit easier. But I'm gonna get up just fine. I don't think the results will be bad, but it won't be necessarily a barn burner. So let's go check it out.
So Justin might have been right in saying that this bike isn't a barn burner per se, but it did a really solid job here, and there's quite a bit to dive into. Justin clocked in a result of 1 minute and 32 seconds from start to finish, and he kept an average speed of 11.8 miles per hour as he pedaled. I compared those results with the same pool of bikes from the range test, so mostly commuter style e-bikes with 250 watt mid-drives, but a few with 350 watt and 500 watt motors. Those bikes averaged 1 minute and 36 seconds, so this one came in right about average and maybe a little bit faster. One thing that really stood out to me with this bike was its torque rating. This Ananda motor cranks out 120 newton meters of torque, which is in the ballpark of what we usually see with 500 watt mid-drives instead of 250 or 350 watt motors. Higher torque ratings usually correspond with better results when pedaling up Hellhole Trail, so that seemed to be the biggest reason that this bike did so well, although I'm sure its below average weight helped it out a bit too. In my personal testing, I took the bike to our secondary location, which is called Pilot Hill. I wanted to see how much of a difference there would be in both feel and my time to the top if I rode up primarily using first or second gear. So as expected, my results in second gear were faster by about 21 seconds and 3.5 miles per hour, but there was really a night and day difference in terms of feel. I definitely had a more active experience in second gear since there was more resistance on the pedals, but in first gear, the same trip felt much more relaxed. Both trips were pretty easy though, so once again, I'm gonna give the Centauri II 2 thumbs up for a job well done. This ride quality section covers all the things that influence how the Centauri II feels to ride, and overall it was great, but it's worth diving into all the details. Let's take the bike back out one more time and talk about some of the basic elements of its ride quality, and then I'll see you back here to cover a few others. All right, so we are here to talk about ride quality on the Centauri II. So this is a kind of hybrid urban commuter e-bike. Definitely a lot lighter weight than your average commuter, but definitely a lot more decked out than your average sort of bare bones city bike. Just tons of premium features on this thing, including the 3-speed automatic transmission. So right now, actually it just shifted up into the second gear. That happens right around 12 miles an hour, as I'm sure we've talked about at this point. But also wanted to kind of highlight the boost button here. So once you are off the line and moving up to about 5 miles an hour, you can hold this boost button and that'll give you motor power for about 4 seconds. So I'm not having to do anything. There's not a traditional throttle though, so that is kind of the compromise here. But in any case, as far as the riding position goes, we have definitely a bit of a forward lean to the position here, but not very aggressive. Still feels very comfortable. I am on the large size frame. There are 3 sizes that are made for riders from 4'9" up to 6'4". So on this one, I'm kind of in the middle of the height range. So definitely feels that way. I'm relatively stretched out, but I really like that, honestly. It feels appropriate. I feel very much in control of the bike with these wide 720mm handlebars. There's about 8 inches of adjustment in saddle height, but if you want to change your handlebar height or your reach, you would need to consider swapping out the stem. So there are 3 stem lengths, depending on the frame size that you choose. But what you see is what you get unless you do change that out. As far as suspension goes, we have an interesting monoshock system here that is up in the head tube. Definitely on the firmer side for sure, which is how Vvolt advertised this. Definitely does a good job though. I mean, riding over little bumps, I can feel it working a little bit, but it is more noticeable when you go over manhole covers, potholes, that sort of thing. It definitely soaks up a lot more there. There's 30mm of travel there. And then the tires help out as well. So those are made by CST. They are 27.5 inch by 2.25. So really nice size for a commuter. You get good stability and traction, and then a little bit of extra cushion for the ride as well. And then we have the 350 watt mid-drive motor from Ananda, obviously with a torque sensor, and very natural ride feel, very responsive. I gotta say, I really have been impressed with Ananda motors whenever I've had the chance to try them. And this motor has a very impressive 120 newton meters of torque. So, if you're tackling hills, the experience, as long as you're in the right gear, is just very easy. So overall, I think Vvolt did a very nice job on this bike. Feels great, steers well, handles well, just great all around, a lot of fun. Let's bounce back to the studio and talk a little bit more. As I mentioned, the Centauri II comes in 3 frame sizes. So to expand on that, the small is made for riders from 4'9" to 5'8". The medium fits those from 5'4" to 5'10", and the height range for the large is 5'8" to 6'4". I found this bike extremely comfortable, and I like that the riding position was a bit more upright with the slightly swept back handlebars, but of course that comes down to personal preference. I also mentioned the boost button in the video clip, and I want to clarify a few things about that. So first, the button on our test bike did provide a slight boost when stopped to help me get off the line, but our contact at Vvolt said that they're changing the programming with the 2025 models so that it will only work with active pedaling. I also noticed that there was a second or two of delay from the point that I held the button to when I felt the motor kick in, and once the boost function was activated, hitting the brakes did not cut the motor power, so there were a couple of times where the bike felt like it was getting away from me a little bit. For safety, I'd recommend that Vvolt include a motor cutoff function with the brakes, but in general, I also think most riders would prefer the ability to start from a complete stop, and I think a throttle that goes from 0 to 10 miles per hour would be a bit more practical. Something we haven't talked about yet is how low maintenance the Centauri II is. The automatic transmission is sealed, so it's less prone to wear, and it uses an internal oil bath for lubrication that is rated to last for thousands of miles. The Gates CDX belt is rated for at least twice the lifespan of a chain, and it doesn't require any lubrication, although you will want to keep it free of dust and debris. It is also worth pointing out that the bike's integrated headlight and suspension are proprietary, so you'll need to rely on Vvolt for any replacement parts there, but otherwise this bike is extremely easy to ride and take care of, so there's really not much to worry about aside from getting the brakes serviced and checking your tire pressure. To touch back on the suspension, I noticed that when going over some small curbs, it could sort of bottom out and feel a bit jarring, so I'd recommend taking things like that a bit slower, but generally it did a good job of smoothing out small bumps. One last thing to cover is the automatic transmission. I mentioned back in the speed test that it shifted at about 12 miles per hour and 20 miles per hour, and I thought that the first shift point was great, but pedaling was starting to feel a little bit loose at that second shift point. It's not possible to change the fact that there's about 8 miles per hour of difference between those 2 points, but you can shift where those points are. So if you find yourself agreeing with me, you might want to consider adjusting those to maybe 11 and 19 miles per hour. Overall, I really enjoyed riding and testing this bike, and I think its ride quality is a step above the norm. The fact that you can hop on and go without thinking about it makes it a real joy to use. So that also makes it very easy to recommend. There are no bones about it. I think Vvolt did a fantastic job with the Centauri II. To quote the company directly from the About Us page on their website, "Our products are designed to be intuitive, easy to control, maintain, and enjoy, regardless of one's ability level." I've had the chance to review a few different models from this brand over my time here at Electric Bike Report, and so far I think this bike has been the most successful at fulfilling that mission. Vvolt clearly prioritized fun, comfort, low maintenance, and especially ease of use with the Centauri II, but they also did a great job of making sure it performed well. As we saw in our test sections, this bike can hold its own when compared to many of its peers, and it excelled in the areas of its intuitive programming and its overall ride quality. Considering the bike's price point of around $3,000, we'd have liked to see brake lights and an included cargo rack. Additionally, we think most riders would prefer a traditional throttle with the ability to power the bike from a complete stop instead of the included boost button, even if that throttle was limited to a speed below the usual Class 2 limit of 20 miles per hour. Those fairly minor things aside, I think this bike would make a great choice for the daily commute, but this is also one I'd happily recommend to anyone looking for a very functional and natural feeling bike that's just easy to use and maintain. Finally, this is a lot less important, but I also think it's an excellent option if you just want a cool looking bike that stands out from the crowd and also brings in some really cool and uncommon technology. If you want to take a closer look at the Centauri II, I'll invite you to check out the 2 links down in the video description. One goes to our written review, which goes into a bit more detail, and the other will take you to Vvolt's website where you can purchase the bike directly. As a reminder, please use that link to help support our efforts, and please also be sure to like, subscribe, and let us know what you think of this bike down in the comments section. But thanks for taking a ride with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Vvolt Centauri II.